Welcome to Story in a Bottle. I'm your host, Dan McEnroe. Each episode, our guests are leading voices in tech, media, and entertainment. And to get to know them better, we share their favorite cocktails as they share their stories.
Two things are constant with media companies. They are always on the edge of collapsing, and someone is always attacking them. Lauren Tousignant has seen that exact challenge firsthand as the editor of Jezebel, a female-focused site that has been on a roller coaster of challenges to its existence since it left the Gawker group of publications almost a decade ago. Over Aperol Spritzes, Lauren talks about the controversy surrounding the recent shutdown of the site and how it was resurrected by Paste Magazine, as well as her own experiences traversing the media landscape.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for coming on and doing this. Since it's the first time we've met, it's kind of fun to... I love meeting new people on the show because sometimes you come on and you have a history and you want to get to certain things.
Yeah.
I have nothing to get to.
Yeah.
I mean, I have lots I want to talk about, but nothing to get to.
All new.
All brand new. All right. So we're drinking Aperol Spritzes, and you gave me a choice, which not all people do. Some people come in, they're like, we're just going to drink Fernet. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
that sounds like a nightmare.
Interesting.
Yeah. But you didn't. You were nice and gave a choice. And we ended up with this over rosé, this Aperol Spritz. Why Aperol Spritz?
It's just a perfect summer drink, and it's not summer right now.
It's like raining.
It's gross,
humid.
rainy February.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get the summer vibes going.
We're escaping to the summer
Yeah.
here at Story. I like that, actually. That's nice. I like that. Is Aperol Spritz your go-to drink?
It's one of my top go-tos.
Okay.
I do love a whiskey ginger.
Oh.
I do love actually 2 years ago, I figured out my martini order, which was very exciting and felt very like...
I feel like there's a journey here that you figured it out. Like you took some time to try some things.
Because I felt like I wouldn't be an adult until I figured out my martini order.
Okay.
So now I do feel like figuring out my martini order at 32 and a half was the moment I became an adult. And
what is it?
It is a dry vodka martini with a twist.
Well, this all speaks to journalism.
Of course, yes. Drinking culture.
My terrible segues, but really, like, if you think about journalism, like, all my favorite journalists that I've known in my career, we used to go out and, like, drink martinis and scotch and whiskey at, like, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., in my early 20s in, like, Times Square. We'd go out to Sardi's or somewhere, and, I mean, I'm old, so... But,
I have a Times Square journalism bar.
Oh, which one?
Lenny's.
Oh, Lenny's. Okay.
It's closed. It closed during COVID, which was devastating. I don't even know. I am wondering now if it was a Lenny's, but it was right right next to the Reese's store.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was a Lenny's. And in my first official journalism job, I was at NewYorkPost.com. My shift was 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So we would walk to the bar at 3:15.
At 3:15. Yeah.
There was one night, I was probably 24. And since it was like digital breaking news, like it was 7 to 3 and then it was 3 p.m. to 11. But then there was also a shift of people that did like, I don't know, 10 to 8. I don't know. There was a shift of people that got off at like 9 and a shift of people that got off at 11. And there was one, it was like a Wednesday. Excuse me. All the 3 p.m. people went to the bar at 3:15. And then the 8 p.m. people who got off came to the bar. And then we were like, well, we can't leave before the 11 p.m. people get here because they always get shafted.
So you're like 8 hours in, basically.
I was at that bar until 3 a.m. And then I went back for 7 a.m. the next morning.
Did you sleep or did you just like wait it out?
Napped.
You napped. Yeah.
That's a quick nap.
Yeah. In our 20s, we can do that, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
expected.
I
was fine. I was tired the next day.
Yeah.
I was a little hungover, but I had a breakfast sandwich and I was good.
I want to come back to the New York Post because I have so many questions about that.
That sounds...
Yeah. But right now, you're working for Jezebel.
Yeah.
You're the editor-in-chief of Jezebel.
Yeah.
And for those who may or may not know, Jezebel's undergone a bit of a change over the past... A little bit of one. Over the past, 6 months, I'd say. Is that right? 6 to 8 months?
Yeah.
So we'll get to how you got there, but
Mm-hmm.
but let's talk about where it is today, because I feel like
Got it.
you guys got bought or acquired or relaunched by Paste magazine, right?
Mhm.
And that was in what, December, January?
December 16th, I think, was the first day we were republished, or we were publishing again.
And when
Yeah.
you so when you and you, before that you were the interim editor, and now you're the editor, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So as the editor, you come in, you're relaunching, or not even relaunching. I guess it's like,
It was I mean, it was a relaunch. We were, we had to win back our audience. People had stopped coming to the site.
well, didn't the site get taken down?
No,
It did not.
it was never taken down.
Okay,
It
that's
just
good.
stopped publishing.
Okay.
But yeah, like I saw when we relaunched, I saw the audience numbers, and every day it was a big drop going back to the homepage, which of course, but
There's no new content. No one's gonna.
no one's gonna keep going back, and they shouldn't, because if they were, that would be stupid.
Or sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both. Yeah. What was the question?
So half a drink in. So in December you guys relaunch,
Mm-hmm.
and under the Paste, I don't know if it's a moniker, but like you're under their management, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And after all that went down, maybe it's helpful to give some context. Like
Mm-hmm.
in 2023, Geo Media shut down Jezebel.
Yeah. November 9th, we were told we were laid off, and the site was done, and that was at 10 in the morning, and that was it.
And from what I understand, it wasn't in, let's say, the most regal of fashions. And maybe it is worth talking about the fact that Geo has a portfolio of media companies that are publications under them. A lot of them, the old Gawker brands, Deadspin, Jezebel. Do they have like all of them, or
Jalopnik, The Onion,
Yeah.
Gizmodo.
Yeah. So you guys were the first one that shut down?
Yes, they sold. Lifehacker got sold. I forget when, beginning of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the only reason I was paused. I was thinking about, but they were bought, but we were the first title that was folded.
And so when they folded you guys, the thing, I want to make sure I get your story in this, so I don't want to like editorialize,
Mm-hmm.
but like for anyone who's listening to understand where you guys stood in the portfolio of their media companies, or publications, you weren't at the bottom of traffic or revenue.
No, we were. I mean, the story we kept being told is that we made no money, but traffic wise, we were number 2 or 3 of the highest traffic in the portfolio. Our traffic, I mean, that summer, I think we were like only one of 2 publications that hit our traffic goals, and the traffic goals were famously insane across the portfolio.
What does that mean for people?
Just traffic goal, just hitting certain numbers that just like.
No. What does traffic what numbers wise? Like, what does that mean? Like, what is insane versus what is expected or average? Or
I don't even know what our numbers were at the time, but they were for the amount of people we had. It was just a lot, and they were supposed to be out of reach, I think.
Yeah,
but we still reached them.
Wait, why were they supposed to be out of reach?
I think I don't know, for higher ups to complain more and just.
Is it a setup to fail situation?
Yes, I think in a way, yes, because if you don't hit these traffic numbers, they can be like, well, no, you can't give promotions, you can't give raises, because look, you didn't hit the numbers. Even though it's like, well, yeah, you can't. I mean, we couldn't backfill roles that people had left. And people would quit. We couldn't hire a new writer, but the goals stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone else is just doing double the work.
Were other publications hiring new writers or filling positions, or was that just across the board the same thing?
We had a hiring freeze across the board end of 2022, if I'm remembering this correctly. But then other publications started hiring again, probably like March or April, but they were not allowing Jezebel to rehire, which that was when it started being like, okay, so like what do you want us to do? And then we hit the traffic goals that summer, and then still nothing was happening. And then it was like, okay, so like what do you want from us?
Right. And so when they decided to shut you down, what was the, what did they, you're because you're not making money, but you're making traffic, or what's the?
We just weren't profitable, is what they kept telling us. Which, you know, if we weren't making money, I mean, it's not our job as journalists to know how to make money. So, you know, I don't want to shit on anyone, but that seems like it's a different team's problem to figure out. And
Do you think, like, as an editor now or as an interim editor, that you should have a window into that? Not that it should not that it impact your editorial decisions. I would say no on that one, but but isn't being in a leadership position putting you in a place where you should be given access to that stuff?
Yeah, 100%. I think they gave me a little bit of a clue as interim, but not like, I was shocked when they folded us. I did not know that was like in the realm of possibility at all.
Yeah.
Which maybe makes me stupid or naive, but like, I did not see that writing on the wall. So yeah, I don't think writers and, you know, daily reporters should have to think about that at all. But I definitely think, yeah, if you're the head editor, even if you're any type of editor, you don't have to be in conversations and you don't have to be in meetings with, you know, the ad team or the marketing team or whatever, but I think you need to understand like what they're facing or what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're going to change your content, but, you know, maybe you can at the very least offer your own take, and at the most, you know, throw them some type of like, I don't know, ad post or something.
Well, I always wonder this, you know, so I have no doubt this will get cut, but like when I went to J school, and which makes me the dumbest person in the world because I went to J school. But my argument with journalism school is always that the one thing they don't teach is that journalism is a business. I think actually UGA actually does a really good job of this. I did not go there, but they do a good job of trying to get that into the minds of people going through maybe a graduate program. And I always think to myself, why aren't we teaching people who are in the editorial side, not because they have to be business people, but that, like, you know, like there is a business here, and we all have to, you know, make sure that the company that we're doing great journalism, great reporting for is also, you know, solvent or whatever. And I think no one does a good job of this ever. And I'm curious to see, like, you know, as we talk about this and thinking about your transition from interim editor to editor, as you kind of went from, you know, them folding it into Paste, did that matter to you? Did that change at all when you went in there as editor?
Yes, it matters to me, but also, I mean, I can give Paste their props. The owner of Paste has been very transparent about it. I mean, they're also, you know, they're a small independent publishing company. They're not.
Yeah. Which is great in a lot of ways.
Which is great. They're not private equity, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been transparent about how it works. They've been transparent, just kind of like what I need to do, what I need to be looking at, like how, I mean, we just turned to a subscription model about, when did we launch that? 3 weeks ago. So we're trying on that right now. So far it's going well.
Is it entirely subscription, or is it like freemium to?
It's a monthly subscription or an annual subscription. The content for the most part is free. The archive starting in 2020 back is behind the subscription wall, and then you can comment if you're a subscriber, which I know a lot of beloved Jezebel readers are frustrated with that, which I understand, but it also, you know, to keep the content free, like, something has to be paid for in this economy.
I also imagine that curbs some of the trolly kind of shitty commenters.
So far it seems like, but I mean, I imagine if you're a true troll, like, you're going to be fine spending $8 a month to shit on feminists.
That's
which, you know, is, yeah, if they want to pay to, you know, hate on us, I welcome, definitely.
I mean, it's kind of like to their own detriment in a lot of ways. I mean, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, but if you really need to comment on a story that we're, you know, a bunch of dumb idiots that should be raped, then say it. But yeah, you have to pay $8 now.
Well,
which I think is fair.
that might be the best quote I've ever heard. If you want to comment on a bunch of dumb, I can't even say it. I can't say it.
If you want to comment calling us a bunch of dumb women who should be raped, then yes, you should subscribe to Jezebel and pay $8 a month.
I think you found your tagline.
Yeah. Say whatever you want, just pay.
Well, there's so much to unpack in that one statement.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's. I don't want to say it's great because it's terrible, but true, you know, and that kind of goes back to the roots of Jezebel, and you know, when I think about the fact that you have this opportunity, or have had this opportunity to relaunch this brand that's been around for what, like 15 years, something like that.
2007 it launched.
Yeah, so okay,
whatever the math is.
17 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Quick math there.
17. Yep.
We're a math podcast also. When you relaunch it, forget about what's going on at Geo. When your head, if there's like a line other than what you just said, so what Jezebel's all about, like what for you is Jezebel today? Like what is the problem in journalism or in content that it's solving? What's a slice of media it serves up to people?
I mean, I came to Jezebel because it kind of, you know, gave you the stories really straight. And by straight, I mean like, you know, this GOP politician is shitting you. Like, they're doing their whole PR spin on whatever this policy is, but they're fucking with you. So that's why I gravitated towards Jezebel in the beginning, because everything was, you know, it was such a, you know, it was so different from the mainstream women's media, but mainstream women's media is kind of caught up to that kind of sensibility, which is great. But I still think Jezebel is one of the only places that is just going to be like, yeah, like this sucks.
Yeah.
Like they suck. Like we're fucked. This is terrible. Like this is shitty. Like we don't really have to like neuter anything. Which I think, you know, obviously that is important for a lot of journalism, but I think it's not as important as it used to be personally.
Because of the array of other publications out there?
No, I mean, like, the New York Times is always going to be, you know, straight down the middle. They're always going to be, you know, they can't say certain things.
They can't choose sides.
Yeah. It's fine.
Sure.
Do what you want.
Yeah, that they'll say they're objective, but let's say, I think sometimes they both sides things a little bit too much.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Jezebel, you know, we can editorialize, we can give our opinion. And, you know, hopefully for a lot of people, you know, we're an outlet where, you know, they can feel seen, they can feel heard, they can, you know, go to a place and be like, I'm so angry. And this place is, you know, validating my anger at, you know, whatever is happening in the country or the world right now.
Do you ever feel in this, like, that world that you're screaming into a void?
Oh, yes, all the time.
Which sounds awful.
Absolutely. But you kind of have to just not think about that.
No, that's understandable. But like, okay, so but then if you're restarting, you know, in December, and you come in as an editor or the editor, the IC, and you got to restart things. What do you say to the team, small team, but a team of people? Like, here's what we're gonna do. Here's our North Star.
Yeah.
Like, what is that for you?
I mean, for the time we started, which obviously December going into 2024 election,
Super fun.
Yeah, super fun. So excited to be back at this point. Trump and Biden, can't wait. I mean, the big thing was like, yeah, like Roe might be gone, but it still could get a lot worse.
And weirdly it has.
And weirdly it already has. And yeah, like Jezebel's voice is needed. Like our reporting is needed. It's, you know, even if we feel like we're screaming into a void, even if we, you know, feel like we're in an echo chamber, like just making sure those headlines are out there, I think is still important, even if, you know, we're saying it to the same people who agree with
that. By the way,
I
hope you're not screaming into a void. I mean, I do, as I was telling you before we started, like I've been a fan of Jezebel for years and years. And I think it's much like I feel like a lot of the verticals in the old Gawker world are necessary for their industries. I think Jezebel has a place and a good one. But I always like worry that people are trolls and people are
Mm-hmm.
assholes, and much like whether it be Jezebel or any other the brands, like there's just these terrible people out there trying to I don't know, subvert what you're saying or whatever. Like what
Mm-hmm.
when you think about how you cover this stuff, are there lines, are there limits, or is it we're gonna go for the jugular? We're not gonna mince words. We're not afraid to mince words.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're afraid to mince words. I mean, what the Alabama ruling a week ago.
Oh, that was my next question. This is
Yeah,
perfect. Yes, great.
they're ruling that embryos are fucking children. Like, no, they're fucking not.
Right.
Like, and that's science. It's not fucking religion. It's not, your fucking pastor's idea of what a child should or shouldn't be. Like, it is science. Like, a frozen embryo is a frozen embryo, and that's it. And that's
Right.
all that should be the decision.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, all our coverage of that over the past week has just been like, this is number one, factually wrong, like just incorrect. Number two, it's exactly what, activists and, Democratic politicians and, journalists at Jezebel and other journalists that were covering reproductive rights said was going to happen when Roe was overturned,
Yeah.
that it was going to be a waterfall effect. We're seeing that play out. So we're not, that's not to say we're telling anyone we told you so, but
That never works.
that never works. But, just saying like, yeah, no, this is what happened and it's going to keep happening. And, Republicans next are going to come for no fault divorce. They're already advocating for no fault divorce. Even, Students for Life, Students for Life is part of like a big coalition of, anti-abortion groups that are writing the 2025 plan, which is this list of things that they want Trump to do to get rid of abortion if he wins office. So, and that's not really being reported out in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. Like, places are strapped, like journalism is struggling right now, and a lot of things need reporting on, but we have the reporters that know exactly what they're talking about. One of our reporters, Susan Rakunas, is, every chance she gets, is talking about the Comstock Act.
I was going to ask you about the Comstock Act.
Yeah,
this seems like this like weird thing everyone's holding behind their backs, that they're like, oh, when he gets elected, the Comstock Act's going to be implemented for abortion.
Yeah.
And for that kind of thing. And I guess like what I'm trying to get to is like, I did this you guys have a great opportunity for education.
Mm-hmm.
Which it sounds like you're doing, but like for a broader audience, like, do you think that's true?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, it has been, I would say, especially like the past 2 weeks, I have seen our stories on abortion and IVF just get shared a lot more than they have maybe a month ago. Especially like on Instagram, people are sharing more. And I just feel like it's catching a little more fire, which I hope just means like more people are paying attention now.
For the Comstock Act, for example, for those who don't know what it is, how would you explain it?
Okay.
So how is if my audience or our audience and the Jezebel audience,
Yeah. Comstock Act is a pretty much anti-porn act from the 1800s that forbids mailing anything that can be considered like obscene or pornographic, but like anti-abortion advocates are saying that abortion pills fall under that obscene or pornographic statute.
Right.
So that basically, if Trump gets elected, he wouldn't even need to pass anything through Congress. He could just enact the Comstock Act nationally, and that would, number one, first of all, it would be illegal to mail abortion pills. It would also make it a lot harder to mail any type of material to any type of abortion clinic, which would make these already struggling abortion clinics just their supplies dwindle even more. And it is just like a slower way to get rid of abortion nationally. Eventually, like it basically just bans abortion without having to pass it through Congress.
Right. So when you think about talking about those kind of things to your audience, and like, is that something that you is it one article, or are you covering that and constantly kind of hammering it so that if they miss one, you can catch them in another place? You know what I mean?
I know this is a podcast, but listeners, I'm shaking my head. Yeah, it's, even when we did like the pre-coverage of the last two debates, it was, hey, CNN asked Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis about the Comstock Act. Like, we are mentioning it in most abortion pieces. It's been mentioned in the past couple of our IVF pieces, and we have a lot of other ideas to just very much hammer it into the public sense that, like, yes, we are ringing another alarm bell. Like, Roe is bad, this could be worse. And I think we just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, everything in my mind is a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
Everything in life seems like it's a week ago or 2 weeks
it's just
ago.
a week or 2 weeks ago, and that's it.
Enough happens every week than it is, basically,
But basically, like, anti-abortion groups don't want Trump talking about the Comstock Act so that people don't know about it.
Right.
People can't learn about it. And then if he gets reelected, then, they'll just be like, oh, surprise.
Right. Do you, and I want to get to like your career, but I just think it's so important to talk about a lot of these issues, especially, given the lens that you guys get to have as Jezebel, which I think years ago it wasn't as political as it is now. And that's not because it shouldn't have been. It was just a different time period. And
there's also a different type of politics.
Yeah. That's
a lot of identity politics.
Yeah. Like, so for you, when you come in as editor, and because we are talking a lot about politics, and obviously we're going into an election year, we are in an election year, sorry. And we are facing, I think, one of the bigger demons that this country will have faced as a potential leader. And I'll use the leader as lightly as possible. Like, do you make that as your North Star? Like, okay, for the next 11 months, this is what we have to be battling against.
Yeah, I mean, for right now, yeah, I think it really is. I mean, we do a lot of coverage, like, culture, entertainment, politics, style, but, one of the important things right now is, like, yeah, we need to be talking about abortion. We need to be talking about reproductive rights. Like, this election is as important as the one before Roe was overturned. Like, Roe was devastating. We don't want it to get worse. Yeah. Maybe pay attention this time. I don't know.
Hopefully.
We would love if people paid attention.
The reason I asked that question is not because obviously I agree that some important issues. Maybe not obviously. I don't know, but hopefully, obviously. But the thing I always struggle with media is, are we preaching to our followers, or are we able to, influence people outside of our circle? I know that, like, for example, like if you watch CNN or MSNBC, maybe a better example, you're not going to reach the Fox News viewer, and vice versa, right? Like, that's just those are playing on different sides of the fence, and that fence is made of the steel. I don't know.
Yeah.
The border wall is weaker. No, I'm not going to go there. But I think that when you're, whether you're a Jezebel or the old Gawker or you're whatever, you're sending an important message out there, especially now. But how do you reach the people who you need to be reaching, not the ones you already are?
I mean, it is obviously, I think that's the great question.
I'm sure no one has the right answer to this question.
Existential question. I think for a place like Jezebel, I like to think, especially with our IVF coverage, over the past 2 weeks, is to just have the headlines there. And they're not preaching, they're not, yelling at anyone. They're just saying, like, IVF is being threatened, and this is how, and this is why.
Yep.
And, some of our headlines are definitely angrier than others. But some of them are really just, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter. If, a Republican woman happens upon that headline, who's concerned about IVF, I would hope that, she'll still click on it regardless. And
Do you do
yeah.
any like social pushes for less liberal media, like or less liberal sites or less liberal audiences on, would be Meta or anywhere else, where you're like, we want to reach these people, so we're going to push things that they might normally not have access to?
I don't know. We don't have a dedicated social team right now.
Fair.
But I mean, everything goes on Meta
Just talk
thread.
to Emily.
And yeah. I mean, yeah, you said you're not paying her.
I shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have said that. I'll say it again. No. But you don't have a dedicated social team right now.
We don't have a dedicated social team. Everything goes on Meta threads and Twitter, and probably like 3 stories a day go on Instagram. So I mean, we are relying on people sharing it and, you know, people retweeting or commenting. So I would say there's not necessarily a strategic push right now to get it in other corners of the internet, but you know, it's there. The information is there.
Yeah.
If people are searching for a no BS way to read about this stuff,
Google can find you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Google will be there for you. No, we do not praise Google.
Fair. Okay. So let's bring it back to like young Lauren. You're growing up in Lowell.
Lowell, Massachusetts.
Fellow Massachusetts person, which I love. Didn't know that before you came here, and just makes me excited that we get to we're on round 2, by the way, for anyone who's listening. It always makes me happy to have a fellow person from Massachusetts on the show. So cheers to that.
Cheers to Massachusetts.
So growing in Lowell, how big is your family?
Not big. I'm an only child. I have 6 cousins on my mom's side, which kind of acted like brothers in a way. And then I have like 2 god sisters, which kind of acted like god sisters.
That's cool. Okay. And high school in Lowell, or like, you know, or where did you go to high school?
I went to Lowell High.
Okay. So in Lowell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right in Lowell. So small family, only child, which people have opinions about only child.
I mean, you know, I feel like only children have a certain drive to them and a certain need. We all, you know, they have. And it seems to me I only did, you know, in my cursory research that is on this page, you definitely had like a media bug that hit you in college. But was that there before that? Like, were you doing any sort of like journalism, whether on your own, secretly, or whatever, you know, growing up?
Secret journalism.
I love the idea of secret journalism. Like, I don't know.
No, growing up, I did a lot of acting. I was a figure skater. And I did a lot of writing. I was a creative writer. I was like a pretty good writer. I got a lot of attention for that growing up.
How does one get a lot of attention as a writer growing up?
I just won like school awards, and teachers always, that was like my big, you know, note on all my report cards is like, she's, you know, she kind of acts up and she's kind of disruptive. She's a great writer.
Was the
Really
dream to be a writer?
Yes, something in writing. I have this book I wrote in, I don't know, 3rd or 4th grade. That
little book I wrote when I was in 3rd or 4th grade.
Little book I wrote.
Sure.
And I have like about the author on the back. And it said, when I grew up, I wanted to be an Olympic figure skater, the person that works at NASA that like does the liftoff for the shuttles, and I wanted to be a reporter at the Lowell Sun, which is our local paper. Sure. So that there was,
I like that you focus on about the author and not about what the book was. What's the book about?
That was actually a book that won a little school award.
Was it published? Was it really published, or is it?
No, it was like laminated.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was like laminated at the school.
Published in a certain way, in that it was laminated.
Yes, yeah, sure. Exactly. It was about like a girl who got lost in the woods, but she was never really lost because like she was friends with the wolves or something.
Okay. That's nice.
I remember when my mom found it like during COVID and I reread it, I was like, not bad.
I love that.
Yeah, not bad for like an 8-year-old.
I mean, that's a good imaginative book.
Yeah, it was fun. And the girl found her way and the wolves were happy.
Everyone won.
Everyone won.
Isn't that our
was a
dream
happy
as
ending,
kids,
exactly.
you know?
It was a great happy ending.
I do think that people have this desire to be creative, and
Yeah.
and I think that where it gets thrown around too much, but like you can't stop yourself. You just do
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I fully believe that everyone has some type of like creative something, whether they wanted to nurture it or were afforded to nurture it. But yeah, you know, writing, art, music, like I think everyone has something that they're naturally good at or drawn to or understand.
It doesn't have to be creative. It could be sports.
Yeah,
you know,
could be sport.
whatever. I mean, I think of like people I know who are great athletes who maybe aren't great in the arts, and that's okay. Like, but it's something you're drawn to. You get excited about it, you're passionate about it, and I think we should encourage that more. I think we encourage sports more than we encourage arts. You know?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So as a writer, you're doing this stuff in high school and right before that. When you get to college, what was the goal?
The goal in high school, I got very into fashion.
Okay.
So the first like real like goal was to be like at a fashion magazine, was to be like, I don't know, a features writer at Vogue, or I always said I wanted to work at Vogue or National Geographic. I always wanted
very different photography, but sure, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I always wanted like fashion and travel.
Yeah.
And be able to have my writing like bring me to both those types of places. So yeah, I went to Syracuse, and I just kind of like I didn't go to the journalism school there, but I kind of grew myself into all the like student publications.
Was there a fashion magazine there or something? There was
there was one that started when I was there. I think it was called Zipped. But when I went there, there was it was called like an alternative.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It was called Jerk Magazine.
Jerk, yes.
Yeah.
I read about that when I was doing research. I was like, what is Jerk Magazine? I've heard of this.
Yes.
So Syracuse publication.
Oh my God. When the first 2 years at Syracuse, all I wanted was to work for Jerk Magazine. It just felt like, you know, just like the coolest place, the coolest people. So yeah, I'm trying to think of like I actually guess Jezebel would be like, Jezebel Gawker would be similar to like
so
what
that all kind of indie voice, feeling like you can kind of say what you mean, say what you want.
Yeah. And they had a fashion component. They had a music component, and you know, they went to like the underground concerts.
And what was your role there?
So I finally got my way in. I got started as a stylist for the fashion section, which was great. And then I became the style editor my senior year, junior year, second semester junior year, and then I stayed on for senior year, which was just like, I mean, it sounds so funny since it was a student publication, but like truly felt like a dream come true.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So I was doing that. I was at the daily student newspaper.
And were you like writing, whether it be for Jerk or for the newspaper, like were you writing kind of your own opinion pieces or putting your voice out there?
Yes. Yes. I was the opinion editor at the Daily Orange. So I was doing both kind of like featurey and kind of opinion pieces. I very much like by senior year, I didn't work at the Daily Orange anymore senior year, but I was a like quote unquote columnist. And I very much had this idea of myself as this like, you know, sarcastic columnist who, you know, wrote about politics. There's one column I wrote about one like Republican at the time. And I remember people being like, what do you know about them? And I was like, it doesn't matter because it's satire.
So you're talking about outside of school politics in the
Yeah.
And I mean, good for you. I feel like that's bold. That's a bold move.
I mean, it was I don't think it was very good, but it was fun, and
nothing you wrote in college is good.
Exactly. Like I think, which leads me to say, I do not think anyone writing in college should publish anything on the internet. I think everything in college should be paper, And I get that the internet is the internet now and paper doesn't sell anymore. But yes, I do not think if you're in college, do not put anything on the internet if you can help it.
Aren't most college papers now both print and digital?
I think most of them are just digital.
Yeah. I mean, my college paper, which had a website in 1990, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think I wrote for them 94 to 98. So I can find my college articles on the internet.
Yeah.
Which is not great
Don't do it.
for anyone. Don't look them up. Anyone listening, not worth it. But I definitely wrote things that I felt at the time very passionate about.
Oh, yeah. Well, which is good because you're supposed to be doing that in college and you're supposed to be making mistakes in college so you don't make them in the real world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, when those mistakes get printed online, those mistakes are forever.
But you when you left college, you went right to you go to Details right away. Is that right? Or no?
Yeah, I was an intern at Details before my senior year.
Is that still around?
No, rest in peace.
Yeah.
They folded.
Yeah. But talk about a magazine that really did well in print. First of all,
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
But yeah, when did they fold? 2017.
Is that right?
I was there. I graduated college 2012, and then I worked there for a year, but I was freelance.
That seems like the opposite of Jezebel, honestly. Like, I feel like Details is like such a.
It was. Although so my first year in New York City, I was at Details, but I was freelance. So, but I was there full time. I was working in the fashion closet, but I was also working as an assistant to Vanessa Grigoratius, who is this writer for Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, and New York Magazine. So I was doing a lot of like transcription and research for her. I worked for her for like 3 or 4 years. And I helped research her first book, which was Power and Consent on College Campuses. So she was the writer who wrote about first wrote the story of the mattress girl at Columbia University, if you remember that story.
I'm trying to remember. I don't.
Around 2015, she was an art student who was raped, and her like senior art project was she carried her mattress around campus for the whole year because her rapist wasn't kicked out of school. He just wasn't punished at all.
Yeah.
So she was the one who wrote the New York Mag cover story on that, which I helped transcribe, and then that like forayed into her book. She did a lot of work for the book and just a lot of reporting for 2 years on, Title IX, the burgeoning Title IX on college campuses, and all the networks that were popping up to help women that were being raped, and there was just no resources for them on their campus. So I was thinking about that on my walk here.
Man, that's a heavy thought. But like, what is that work that you were doing? Like, how what does that contribution look like in terms of putting that book together?
It was just a lot. I mean, it was a lot of transcribing, it was over a year of just hours of transcribing of, her talking to advocates and college students and politicians. So even just listening to those interviews and transcribing them that closely, I was just like, wow, I learned so much. And then also it was just a lot of going to like LexisNexis. And just finding just all these different reports about campus sexual assault over like the last few decades. I'd put together these like fat packets of all these articles, even if they had just like the smallest mention. So yeah, that was a lot. I mean, it was all behind the scenes work, but it was,
of course,
But
if you think about that experience for you as you're coming up in like your 20s, and you're working with a person who's, a pretty thorough, pretty successful, smart journalist, when you think about what you got from that as a budding journalist, if I can say that, it's not an insulting thing to say, I think, as a budding journalist.
No.
Like, what do you feel like you took away from that for not just like your skill set, which I imagine a lot of things, but also your point of view in journalism.
I mean,
or as a journalist.
I think one of the biggest points of view was, we don't have to be objective. Like, these are not objective stories. Like, obviously a court of law has to be objective, but no, like, these women were raped, and, people were making excuses for the rapist, and people were not helping them. Like, campuses were not helping them. Like, the people that were supposed to help them were not helping them. And yeah, that was very clear. And I know there's like a lot of, maybe not controversy, but conversations about, journalist or advocate, like, or are you an advocate or are you a journalist? And, I think in a lot of circumstances, journalism comes first, but I also think in a lot of circumstances, like, no, like, when people are not being helped, like, no, your role as a journalist is to advocate for why they need to be.
I think, first of all, it's a really good point. And this idea of journalist as fly on the wall, as objective, is something that gets talked about a lot. And I talk about a lot, honestly. And it's one of those things where, I think you make a really good point, which is that what is the role of the journalist? Is it to just report the facts, which maybe that's true?
Yeah.
Or is it to tell the story that needs to be told?
Yeah.
And I really, you've kind of touched on this, and I don't want to muddy the waters in talking about it, because my opinion doesn't really matter. But I do think that, or I do wonder that where that line is in a good way, like you said, sometimes we don't need to get all the sides. The story is what it is. But sometimes people go on the other side way too far.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like rape conversations. I'm talking about bad politics, really.
Yeah.
But like, how do you think about that from a journalism standpoint because of those truisms, that truth?
I mean, I kind of do think, I'm like, you need both. Like, you need Reuters and you need a place like Jezebel that is like, okay, yeah, no, Reuters is right, but also like, here it is.
But isn't no, that's fair. And I think Reuters or AP, that's a great example of objectivity.
Yeah.
But then you get to someone like the New York Times, who are claiming to be both sides. I would argue that they're hurting themselves in their both sidesisms. I would argue that CNN does too. And I've said that before on the show. I mean, we don't have to go to the other places that are clearly not even trying. But like, where do you fall on that? Because with Jezebel, it sounds like you're like, I know where we are.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Wait, it's hard to answer because I do, like, I know where Jezebel is. Like, we are, pro reproductive rights. We are anti-rape. We are anti-genocide. We are.
It's weird that you have to defend those positions sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. But, I don't think there needs to be objectivity with those things. Yeah, it's hard because I don't work at the New York Times, and I don't want to be the person at the New York Times making those decisions, or lack of, like, not making those decisions.
But you went to the New York Post. I mean, the New York Post is not known for its objectivity.
I went to the New York Post because I needed a job.
And I'm not arguing with you about that, But
no, it's a hard question.
Well, let's talk about the New York Post. Like, you go to the New York Post. It's you need a job. You go there. I mean, from what I understand, you're not like reporting on hard news.
No, I got hired. I had a lovely dear friend who's no longer with us, who was a features reporter there, who was like, they're redoing the website. Like, they're completely relaunching it. They want to compete with like BuzzFeed and New York Times. Like, it's not going to be like the paper.
Yeah.
You should apply. Like, so that's how I got in. And it wasn't like the paper. It was very separate in a lot of good ways and a lot of bad ways. But I mean, during my time there, I kind of like, the only way I was really able to write was I kind of, we weren't covering like space or the environment, and I kind of just forced myself into that role, which gave me clips. It didn't get me a lot of traffic or a lot of, fans, but
Right.
it gave me clips. It gave me something to write about. But it was a weird.
Why, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, why are clips important?
What?
For people who don't know, like, why are clips important for?
Just to show that you can write. Just to show that you can.
Someone wanted to publish you.
Yeah, someone wanted to publish you. You can write a story. You can interview sources. You can pull quote. But yeah, so I mean, I enjoyed doing that, but it was also, I mean, my role there was very odd towards the end. I was syndication editor, which was basically, I was in charge of what stories we would pull from other sites to then republish on the New York Post. Yeah, it was weird, but all of which is to say, like, I was not involved in like the politics of the Post.
Sure. Yeah.
Also to say, I mean, the politics of the Post is, for show.
In what way?
There's a lot of people that work there just aren't, they're not on the right.
Right. They're publishing what they need to publish to
Yes.
meet the expectations of the publisher, if you will.
Yeah. The Murdoch family.
Yeah. So what brings you to Jezebel?
I had been trying to get out of the New York Post for years. And I was just unlucky. Like, I would apply to places for 4 months and get burnt out, and then I wouldn't do anything for 6 months, and then I was in that cycle for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Jezebel got back to me. I wish it was a more exciting story, but
when you think about the opportunity that you got there, or maybe that's a bad way of phrasing it. When you think about what the opportunity may have been there, was it something you were like, this is what I'm waiting for, or was like, oh, this just gets me out of here, and I'm.
Oh no, it was. I very much was like, if I don't get this job, I am leaving New York City and I'm leaving journalism. Like, it was fully, because I was like the last two in an interview for the Environmental Defense Fund. They were hiring like some type of writer. I didn't get that. And then before that, I was interviewing for a position at a FAR magazine, but a FAR magazine.
Farm?
A FAR. It's like a travel magazine.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's way more interesting than a farm magazine.
But the pay was truly nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had applied to Jezebel before and just had never even gotten an interview. So I didn't have high hopes, and I applied, and I got, the edit test. Then I got a first interview, and then I got a second interview. And I was so close that I literally, at that point, I was like, I cannot keep applying to jobs. Like, if I do not get this job, that's it.
Where are you going? What are you going to do? What's the...
I was probably going to move back with my parents and just kind of, I don't know, probably I have no idea.
Start from scratch and figure out the next thing?
Start from scratch. I kind of started a book over COVID. So I was like, maybe I'll live with my parents for a year and, finish that stupid book. But no, I was very close. And it was like 3 months before my lease ended.
Oh my God.
So I was like, this is it.
Yeah. Well, so you get the job, and it was an editor job?
It was senior editor.
So when you walk into Jezebel, which, at that point has a reputation, it's obviously been through the Gawker situation and reacquired by GO. What is that atmosphere like when you walk into GO and you walk into Jezebel, day one or week one or whatever?
It was pretty steady at that time, or it was pretty stable, I should say.
Yeah.
There was like a pretty good staff. I feel like everyone felt in like a pretty good spot. Obviously I got hired, so they were still investing in Jezebel.
Sure.
And yeah, it felt It felt great. I felt very lucky. I was very excited. Um, for the first time, I was in a place where like my values aligned with the publication's values, my opinions aligned with them. Like I was encouraged to write about how I felt, what I wanted. Um, it was a dream job. It still is a dream job.
Did Jezebel feel like it was its own kind of little bubble outside within the world of the other kind of publications?
Um, like kinda. I mean, we were friends with other publications. And obviously, like, there was an office, so people, different staff writers had relationships with other staff writers. I don't feel like, all the editors at all the publications were, in on everything together and like meeting about ideas and everything. But
Yeah.
it wasn't completely isolated by brand. There was, I mean, especially, Geo was unionized. They had a fantastic union. So I feel like just having that,
Yeah.
brought a lot of people together through that. When I started, it was like a month after they'd gone on strike. So there was definitely like camaraderie among everyone, it was nice to walk into.
So do you feel like obviously there've been rumors and conversations and publications writing about the challenges of that environment?
Mhm.
How much did that impact you, or did not at all?
It it impacted us in the way that, or it impacted me in the way that, like, it's hard to say because I wasn't in meetings with management.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to face Jim Spanfeller, on a weekly basis, which felt very lucky about.
Sure.
But, there were, at one point they're like, can't put swears in headlines anymore. And at one point we got in trouble for putting the word pussy in a headline. And it was like, what are we doing here? And why? And yeah, it was like they didn't, I don't know, they kind of did leave Jezebel alone in a lot of ways, which, ended up being they folded us. So
Right.
that was
They left
a
you
problem.
alone, but they set you goals that you, like you were talking about earlier, like you can't meet.
Yeah.
Like how does, like, I guess at some point you move into this interim editor position.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get more visibility into what your goals are, or how to meet those goals, or what does that look like?
No, I mean,
Or how did that even happen? Like so you came in there as senior editor.
yeah.
What led you to that next
It
level up?
I mean, our editor-in-chief left and our deputy editor had left like a couple months before her, or a couple weeks before her. She was still freelance, but she wasn't full-time anymore. So it was kind of between me and the features editor, and the features editor didn't want it. And I did want it. So yeah, I did. I mean, I forget what, after we folded, I think it was the New York Times I talked to, and I said, I was like, that last month was kind of the most fun, or kind of what I imagine maybe like the beginning of Jezebel was.
Oh, how so?
Just that they really left us alone. Like I did talk to some people on a weekly basis, just kind of to be like, are we being sold? Are you like, what do I need to be doing? And it was kind of like, just keep the site going. But, we wrote what we wanted. I encouraged everyone to like, this is kind of your moment to write some cool, weird stuff that you maybe weren't pitching before because we had different goals.
Right.
But like no one was really bothering us. No one was.
That seems like the best way to do it, to be have fun doing it. So when you got that word, we were talking about a little before, that was, as you said, like a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
What happens for you? What's your reaction? What do you do?
It was weird because my cousin had gotten married that weekend before. So I was at my parents' house that week. I decided to stay home for a week. So it was weird. I was literally in my parents' like living room And yeah, I mean, that's like really me personally, but yeah, it was,
that's real.
yeah, it was weird because everyone else that was in New York like met up and just kind of hung out for the day. And I just was like, okay.
But what did you think to yourself? Like, what's next? I mean,
I did not know. Because I did kind of have this idea of my career of kind of like Jezebel would be my last, journalism job. And I
why
kind
is
of,
that?
so I don't know if I could not do such opinionated work. I don't know that I could be objective now. I don't know that I could go somewhere and be objective.
And wouldn't you'd argue now that you can't be anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
So yeah, so I mean, not necessarily, but I was kind of like, oh, I want to very much, use this position and, figure out, do I want to go into TV writing or, production or, yeah, that was kind of how I imagined leveraging it maybe, which, are, the bigger dreams, but
Right.
yeah, I just couldn't see myself at a lot of places. But then, of course, like 2 weeks after we got laid off, I was already searching for jobs at like any other media outlet. But it did feel weird because I kind of was like, this was not, I don't know. I just was, it was a very bizarre feeling, which I know, like, I mean, obviously,
Right.
we got very, very lucky. Like, no one gets laid off and then rehired the same
How does that happen?
publication.
Someone says, okay, we're going to buy this. And I'm guessing it was like let's say a very cheap acquisition.
I'm sure it was pennies.
Yeah. Do they call you or how does,
I knew the week it was going to be announced, they called me and told me, and they said they were talking to other people for the editor-in-chief job, but they wanted to talk to me. So I had 2 big conversations and I had like an in-person interview, which felt nice because I do feel like, I earned it in some way. It wasn't just like, let's put the interim in charge. I do feel like I went through it. So yeah, that was.
So when they hire you and it's all real, it starts. I'm going to go back to the conversation we had earlier. You go in day one, or maybe before day one, you get hired. Now you're not the interim. You're the person. You're the IC. You're the head honcho at Jezebel. Newly acquired, new management. What's the point of view you walk in with on day one?
Just, we cannot have the Comstock Act. That's the first thing. I was like, we need to write about the Comstock Act every single day. Let's call it Jezebel plus the Comstock Act.com. No, I mean, the point of view was I wanted to keep Jezebel, all the best pieces of Jezebel are there. Like, it's, this alternative voice, but it's also, it's funny and it's weird, but we have some of the best reporters and, right. We have an established presence, for abortion rights and reproductive rights, which, was great for me because I was like, I just kind of have to keep making sure it's, the best pieces of it are highlighted. And then, another thing that I'm working on is I just think, Jezebel just needs to be bigger than the website. So, we're just trying to make it more visible, like on social. We're going to get live events this summer.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that was kind of my point of view. I was like, it's already great. We already have, the best writers, the best reporters.
But you have a responsibility, don't you think, to carry that forward with the best. Yeah. Like you said, you have this archive.
Exactly.
And you have the torch to carry. And like, how do you feel about it?
I mean, 2 Aperol Spritz, I feel like.
Fair enough. All right.
No, I mean, it definitely, especially since I'm like, hopefully the first editor of many under this new ownership, like, there does feel like a pressure to continue it,
Yeah.
to ensure that it stays as relevant as it has been. And also a pressure to just, make it a place that like people want to be and people want to write for and people want to read. So yeah, yeah.
Well, I sincerely, really believe the voice of Jezebel is an important one. Here we are in media, in the world, and not just for women. I think men should read it too. It's not meant to just be.
Men should read it.
They should. and I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Likewise. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of Story in a Bottle. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review for us in the iTunes Store or wherever you listen. I'd like to thank our producers at 1459 Production Management and Charming Robots Eric Bowie for his continued production support. And of course, I'd like to thank my guest, Lauren Tousignant, for graciously giving us her time.